With India being the most rapidly developing country on the planet, a lot of animals have been struggling to adapt. But one species has stuck out amongst all the rest as being by far one of the most adaptable and also threatening, that being the leopard. Similarly to North America's coyotes, hundreds of different leopards now live across the Indian subcontinent inside of our man-made cities right underneath our noses. But unlike black bears or coyotes, which don't pose much of a threat to people, these leopards don't just eat livestock and pets, but occasionally even grab children throughout the many different cities in which they've invaded. So how are these leopards surviving in these cities, and how are people learning how to live alongside these amazing, yet also incredibly dangerous creatures? Well, let's cue the intro and figure it out.
A special team of forest officials is also trying its best to tranquilize the big cat.
Seeing a leopard on CCTV has become common. Here, one stalks a supermarket car park.
Known for their elusive nature, have learned to coexist with humans in this urban jungle.
Having once existed throughout every single state in India, the leopard is surprisingly common throughout the subcontinent. But unlike its close relatives, the Asiatic lion and the tiger, the leopard is still decently widespread. This is because leopards don't need nearly as large of territories and are also much more adaptable when it comes to where they can live and what sort of prey they can feed upon. This, on top of the fact that they are almost never seen, has allowed for them to stay in the vast majority of their range, at least in areas where development isn't too insane. But still, recently these leopards have been encroaching more and more onto human habitats, particularly not just villages but actual cities, with Mumbai in particular being the most famous of these cities, which now has 55 resident leopards that enter in and out of its city walls, with some of them even living in the city full-time. This of course is a huge problem, but before we get to why it's such a big deal, we gotta figure out why these leopards are choosing to live in these cities in the first place. Well, you see, it has to do with three things: competition, food, and the fact that in some cases they simply don't have a choice. Despite the leopards still being widespread throughout India, their range is still pretty fragmented due to all the highways and cities that separate each of their respective populations. Because of this, as leopard numbers increase, they end up needing to spread out into new territories, which in some cases can and does include the city. And also in some cases, these leopards are simply just forced to travel across the cities in order to reach new habitat, mainly due to their original ranges either being destroyed or taken over by other leopards or other big cats. These leopards, though, are incredibly cryptic when they are traveling across cities, and because of that, they usually don't cause any problems. This is in stark contrast to the other group of leopards that happen to invade these cities, that being the resident leopards, which include the city as part of their territories. These leopards in particular don't go into the city in order to look at the views, but instead go in there in order to actively hunt, specifically domesticated animals and in some cases people. Mumbai alone had over 25 leopard attacks in 1 year, of which multiple were fatal, and all of them took place right in the middle of the city. But this isn't normal leopard behavior. On average, most of these leopards aren't going into the city in order to hunt people, but instead the animals in which they own, including domesticated dogs, feral pigs, and in some cases even house cats and cattle. Leopards usually prefer these prey items over people as they are seen as more nutritious towards the animal, and also they are less capable of using tools and weapons to fight back, which isn't something the leopards are a big fan of. Still, unlike most other predatory animals, the leopard has evolved around hominids for millions of years, and because of that they have specifically learned how to take out humans when necessary, as normally adult healthy leopards prefer to go after other prey items. Yet again, we've never truly been off the menu for these big cats. Unfortunately, for this reason, hundreds of people die each and every year because of these leopard attacks. With the Indian state of... you get the idea, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. Having over 113 fatal attacks contributed to both tigers and leopards alone. Even though these creatures aren't exactly thought of as monsters, which they aren't, Having to coexist with these deadly predators is a very big deal, and it's something everyone who does live in leopard territory should constantly have on their minds. So with leopard incidents occurring so often and even being on the rise, how are people defending themselves from these big cats and learning to coexist alongside them? Well, there are a few different methods. One of them is the fact that a lot of people often carry around large sticks in order to defend themselves from these leopards. Obviously, you cannot kill a large cat with these giant sticks, but the intimidation factor that comes with carrying such a weapon alone is usually enough to deter these cats. Also, leopards are much less likely to attack people when they are in groups. This is because leopards are ambush predators, and when they are hunting, it's much easier to ambush an animal or person when it's alone. And on top of both of these things, leopard task forces have been created in order to combat leopard attacks in both villages and cities across India. Interestingly, unlike in most other parts of the world, in India, leopards are fully protected even when they do attack people. For this reason, lethal force is almost never used against these leopards in the villages and cities that they come across. Instead, these leopards are usually captured using a variety of different nets and traps and are either relocated or put into life in captivity, depending on the situation. All these programs are definitely far from perfect, as there's been plenty of problems with leopards attacking people after being captured, and also people getting hurt in the process of capturing these creatures. These programs are still a step in the right direction, as it's allowing for humans and leopards to coexist side by side with less casualties on both sides. Really, like most human-wildlife conflict situations, there's not one single perfect solution. But at least the people of India are trying their best in order to coexist with these amazing predators. Whether it's supervising your children and pets at all times, or walking around with a set of fake eyes behind your head, there are plenty of ways in order to decrease your chances of being attacked by a leopard. And thankfully, the people of India are slowly starting to wake up to this reality and take more and more safety precautions in order to prevent these attacks. Still, for as much as India does seem to care about its wildlife, the amount of development that has been occurring within its border walls is pretty insane. Now India just so happens to be the most populated country on Earth, with nearly 1.5 billion people, of which half of them are sadly in poverty. And just as unfortunately, a lot of those people have a multitude of different animal threats to worry about, ranging from venomous snakes to tigers and the leopards we've talked so much about. And also this thing. What matters is that hopefully as development starts to slow down, these leopards could settle in and eventually ideally coexist with humans. Even though these leopards might be a safety concern to many of the residents across India, they also pose an opportunity. With more and more people getting into wildlife across the world, the demand for ecotourism opportunities, such as safaris, has gone up significantly. So with leopards, on top of other Asiatic creatures, encroaching closer and closer to these cities, people now have more opportunities than ever to see these animals in the wild. And a lot of people, including myself, would like to see that someday. Preferably from a safe distance, of course. In a lot of cases, the solution to many of these human-wildlife conflicts isn't the execution of the animals involved, but instead us learning how to live alongside them and end both poverty and the unnecessary killings of the animals involved through the use of ecotourism. Whether it's shark diving on tropical islands across the world or safaris in Africa, there's plenty of different ways in which we could help boost the economy of these places plagued with animal attacks without having to resort to killing these animals. Obviously, if you have to defend yourself while being attacked by any animal, then do it, of course. But you also have to keep in mind that these are simply just creatures trying to live out their best lives and do whatever they can in order to survive. With that being said, I'm trying to do whatever I can to survive right now by making these YouTube videos. So please, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, as this channel is my main source of income. And hopefully I'll see you real soon. Goodbye.